Hey, Finding Happily Family. I'm Colette G, dating relationship specialist and author. Welcome back to my channel and welcome newcomers. Today, I'm excited to be sharing something new with you to kick off 2024, and that is a reaction video. I've only done one reaction video, and I believe that was to the trad wife thing that was trending a while ago. But today I'm going to be talking about a TikToker by the name of Gail Lewis and how she catches her cheating husband and his mistress at the Atlanta airport. Now, I don't do videos like this, but the reason why I decided to share my reaction and my thoughts to this video is because I started like watching one or two of the videos on TikTok, and I was like, wow, I should really share my reaction and my thoughts to this, not only as a person who has been through this kind of trauma like this woman has, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few. I also wanted to share my feedback and thoughts as a dating and relationship specialist. For some of you who might be going through similar challenges like this. So I've already geared up the video here for you guys. And this will be like my second time, I think, using, what is this? A StreamYard. I used it when I did the reaction video for the trad wife video, and it went pretty well. And if this works out, then I think I'll subscribe and start doing a little bit more of these types of reaction videos, depending on you guys' feedback.
How you like that? You gonna like that?
Hey y'all, well, it's story time in regards to that video I posted this morning of my husband and his mistress at the Atlanta airport. So let me just preface this by saying I'm a nice person, I'm a sweet person. I'll do anything for my family and my friends, and I'll help anybody out. Try to stay in my own lane. I try not to bother anyone or do any of that. But when people play in my face and plot and plan and do foul stuff, I'm not so nice anymore. And that's how most of us are. So let me start by saying on October 29th of 2022, my husband was scheduled to come home from a trip from Europe. He told me he had been over there working, and he worked a lot for his, his corporate job. I thought he was working anyway. Told me he had a speaking engagement in Europe. So I wanted to make sure that I had dinner and everything ready for him by the time he got home. So I called the airline. So I knew the flight number, and I was driving, so I couldn't, type it in my computer, because usually if you just type a flight number in, it'll just pop up what time the flight's going to land. So I had to call the airline that day. And when I asked the flight attendant, or not the flight attendant, I'm sorry, but the representative, what time that flight came in, he asked for my husband's name. And I was like, you don't need his name. I was like, just give me the flight information. If I typed it in, I just need the flight information. You don't need his name. So he was adamant about me giving the name. So I gave him the name. He comes back a few minutes later and he says, Mr. Such and Such and Miss what's her name landed 20 minutes ago. So I'm in shock, because I've been married 25, 26 years, and I'm thinking I'm just married to this outstanding, upstanding citizen. So I said, no, just his name. I don't know who that other person is, but just his name.
Okay, so I wanted to stop the video right there because I was reading some of the comments section, and a lot of people were like, okay, well, this is not sounding right because airlines are not in the business of giving that detailed of flight information. I wouldn't actually know, because I've never called the airline to ask specifically about someone on a flight or not. So I don't know that, and I do travel a lot, and that would seem kind of, weird to me, like that an airline would give out that kind of information. But even though it did sound a little suspect to me, that part of it, when you're sharing these things, And I watched two videos before I decided to record this one. So, but when you're going through this type of trauma or an experience like, you found out your partner, your spouse is cheating, things are not always just so clear. You don't always, at least in my opinion, I don't think you always are so clear about how you're describing the scenario. You're trying to do the best you can to share this to people on a social media platform. So in that regard, I think like, let's give her a break. Because it takes a lot of courage to come forward and share your story the way this woman is. So I'm going to go ahead and continue the video, and I'm hoping that this is all recording correctly.
Guy states again, he was like, Mr. Such and Such and Miss What's her name just landed a few minutes ago, like 20 minutes ago. So I'm sitting in the Kroger parking lot like, what does this mean? I'm in a state of shock, actually. So my head is spinning by this time. My blood pressure's going up. And I'm like, what does this mean? So I'm like, okay. So right after that, my husband calls. And I was trying to hold it in, trying to hold what I was feeling in. So I was like, I'm not going to say anything right now. I'm going to wait till he gets to the house. Because he was like, oh, I missed you. It's been a long, long week. This is the hardest money I ever earned. But I wish you could have gone with me. And I was like, okay, well, you can tell me about your trip when you get home. So, okay, stand by, y'all, for the rest. So, okay, y'all. So when he comes home, I greet him at the door, give him a hug and a kiss and ask him about his trip while he's unpacking. And so I'm like, show me some pictures from your trip. And he was like, oh, I didn't take any pictures. I was running around working and we were just so busy and on the go. We were just, just going to and fro. So I was like, oh, okay. So we go to have dinner. I was like, hey, I called the airlines to see what time your flight was getting in. And I said, they told me there was someone else on your itinerary. And I tell him the person's name. And he was like, who was that? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me. He was like, oh, I don't know who that is. And he was like, He said, they must have made a mistake. So I was like, well, okay. So I went along with it, but something about it, my spirit just was not feeling right. So I was like, something about this is just not right. So that night when we go to bed, he's sleeping over there, just a snoring. I'm over there tossing and turning because I was like, something about this just does not feel right. So something tells me in the morning when you get up, go check your credit card bills that are on the counter. So the credit card bills are all stacked up out on our kitchen counter, and I don't open them because I don't pay the bill. I mean, it's American Express bill each month. They be high. So I was like, I ain't got none on it, so no need for me to open them. But that was my account, and I added him to it years ago, and I just let him open it, open the bill and pay it. And there was sometimes I would open it, but most times I would just look at my portion of it and just keep it moving. So that morning when I get up, I go to church, and he tells me that he had to leave because he had to catch up on work and all that kind of stuff later on in the day. So I was like, okay. So I go to church, and when I come back from church, I get ready to go to the Falcon game. But something was like, check one of those credit card bills before you go. When I open up that bill, the woman that the airline employee mentioned that was on his itinerary, her name was up and down my credit card bill. Flights here, flights there, flights to Paris, Delta vacations, a country here, an island there. So I'm thinking this was in 1 month. So I'm sitting there like, what in the world? So by this time, y'all, I'm steaming, and I got to go to this Falcon game with my girlfriends and try to act like I'm having a good time. But the whole time, my mind is racing. So I was like, okay. So I come home that night. I stack up all those bills. I got bills for like 8 months worth of bills. Actually, that was October. So 10 months. I pulled from December of 21 to October of 22. And when I tell you, it was very telling. This woman's name was on every one of my bills for each of those months, several times. So while I thought he was out working and telling me that I couldn't travel with him because, he didn't want to get distracted. Oh, he had a travel mate, all right. He had one. Stand by for part 3. So I go through all these credit card bills, finds this girl's name for months on my credit card bills, for the last 10 months specifically. So at that time, I try to call his phone, call my husband's phone and text him. No answer, no text back. So I call his boy's house because he told me he was going to his boy's house to watch football. No answer from him. So I texted him and was like, hey, is he with you? No answer back. Then all of a sudden, here come my phone ringing. It's my husband. Like, oh, I ran out to get something to eat. Like, what's up? And I was like, oh, you know what's up? I said, and I started repeating the girl's name. And he was like, why you keep saying that name? And I was like, I kept saying the name. So he was like, well, I don't understand why you keep calling the name. And I was like, oh, yeah. I said, your gig is up. I was like, you nasty motherfucker. I was like, your gig is up. So he was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm on my way home. I'm on my way home. I was like, bring your ass on home. I was like, come home. Because by this time, I'm furious. So I hang up the phone. I'm just like livid, y'all. I promise you. I think my blood pressure was on like 1,000 that day. So he comes in and he come in like all Billy Bad, like, why you keep mentioning that name? And I was like, you tell me why I keep mentioning that name. So I was like, I'm going to ask you this. I said, I'm going to ask you one time. I said, no, I know the truth. I was like, was such and such on this flight with you? He was like, no, I don't know why you keep mentioning that name. I don't know who that is. I said, I'm going to ask you one more motherfucking time and know that I know the truth. Don't lie to me. And it was like this mask fell off of him. And he sat down in his chair and he was like, yeah, she was with me. And I was like, okay. I said, so that's your girlfriend? He was like, yeah. I said, well, how long you been with her? He said, a couple of years. And I was like, okay. So by this time, I can't hold it together. I mean, all I remember doing, I remember crying, and I had a really, really bad headache. And all he said to me was, and this was what he says was really kind of like cut me. He was like he was relieved. He was like, at least I ain't got to lie no more. I'm sorry I hurt you, but at least I don't have to lie anymore. So by this time, I'm like, say what now? So I'm screaming, I'm yelling. My son's upstairs. He comes down, goes back up because I was like, everything's fine, everything's fine. But my head is like hurting like really, really bad, guys. So I come back to my bathroom to try to get some medicine. So I was like, let me take my blood pressure. Blood pressure was like 190 over 110 or some crazy shit like that. So I was like, I got to get to a hospital. So stand by. It gets more interesting.
Okay, guys. Before I play the remainder of her videos, and I think this is coming up on 5, and there's a total of 8. So I wanted to just share with you that this story resonates with me deeply because in my previous marriage, I was cheated on by my spouse, and I confronted him. The woman would call my house. My husband would be out at all hours of the night. I'm in the house with, the kids, and I'm working like 80 hours a week at, the hospitals. I was working for a nursing agency at that time. And, he just kept denying it. He never admitted it, not ever. And it wasn't until, that feeling that Gail talks about in her video where you just can't sleep. Something is just not right. And it's your gut, your instinct telling you that you have to dig deeper, that it's like that spidey sense, and they call it a gut instinct for a reason, because I think, when something is amiss, we feel it in our gut. It's like our gut is like the second brain. And sometimes we ignore that. And I wonder how often she maybe had that gut feeling, but didn't think to do anything about it. Because I want to say this without blaming the victim. In some cases, a woman is completely and utterly blindsided. And I would imagine, I think Gail said she was married to her husband for 25 years. And when you're married to your partner for a certain amount of time, you live with them, you eat with them, you're intimate with this person, when something is off. But there are narcissists or really good posers and pretenders that learn how to cover their tracks. So it's not always that you see things. And especially when you've been with somebody for so long, you just learn to trust them. You don't feel like there's any reason for you to doubt that what they say is true, because there aren't any red flags that popped up. So maybe, even though she doesn't talk about it in the videos I've watched so far, and I mean, I'm going to play it and see if she talks a little bit more about that later on. But I'm wondering if, there was something that led her to go down this rabbit hole. Did she sense something? Because I know when that happened to me, I sensed something was off. And it was the calls, those calls and the house phone. I mean, I'm dating myself, but this wasn't like the cell phones, secret cell phone stuff. This was the house phone calls, hanging up, I'll be right back, to long walks to the store. It was just little things that was just like, for me, something's up. And I do talk about it in my book, which is Finding Happily. No rules, no frogs, no pretending. You guys can order a copy of this on Amazon, and it's a collection of short stories about my personal relationships, but also other women that I know are in here. Obviously, the names have been protected to protect the innocent. But it's a collection of short stories about different scenarios where some women, including myself, go through different relationship challenges. So I do talk about that cheating experience in my book in more detail. But there is this feeling that you have where you can't even sleep. You can't sleep. You can't rest. But that other person seems to be resting just fine, especially when they've been going along for like 2 years, like her husband with the mistress. And now he's finally like, whoo, I came clean. I can rest now. It's like, having somebody in the interrogation room and finally they come clean about the crime they committed, and they want to eat and they want to rest. And that's how her husband responded to this situation. So I'm going to play the rest of the video, and then I will give you my thoughts and feedback at the end.
So by this time, my head is banging, and I know I need to go to the hospital. I know something is wrong. So of course, I'm crying. I'm hysterical, trying to put my clothes on. He's trying to touch me and pet me up like, oh, I'm just so sorry that I made you feel this way. Now, didn't really have any compassion in his voice, any of that kind of stuff. So I was like, don't touch me. So I drive myself to the airport. He was like, I'll drive you. I was like, I said, I'll take my chances. I drive myself to the airport. I get there. Blood pressure is off the charts, to the point they're like, ma'am, you're about to have a stroke. You got to calm down. And I really couldn't even talk. So they were like, you got to calm down. So they call my doctor. We get the medicine. They try to get it under control. So I'm there for a couple of hours. So I come home, and he's sitting on the couch eating Cheetos like ain't shit happened, right? And it comes in like, oh, what they say? And I was like, they said they got my pressure, kind of down, because it went all the way down. They said, go see a doctor in the morning. So that night I could not sleep. I cried all night long, to the point when I got up that morning, I really couldn't even see. My eyes were so swollen. So I'm tore up, right? So I go out later that morning. He's upstairs. I come upstairs because I slept in another bedroom. He's around here like, like do, like, he having a good day and shit. Like, his burdens is light. Mine heavy, but his is light. So I come up, and then he's out in our family room, and I was like, look, I said, I don't know. And I'm still in a state of confusion. So I was like, I don't know what happened last night. And I was like, I don't know what I've done wrong. Because by this time I'm blaming myself. I was like, I know I'm getting older, but I try to keep myself up. I try to look nice, do whatever I can as a wife. I was like, I've tried my best, so I don't even know what I could have done or what I can do. So I'm taking the blame. And he was like, oh, it's not you. Like, it's not you. So, but I'm like, no, like, it's got to be me. He was like, no, he's like, you're a good wife. You've been a really good wife. So I was like, well, I'll tell you what. I was like, I'm confused here. I said, so what we need to do, I was like, I think we need to sell the house. Let's move away, try to start over. You go to counseling. I go to counseling. We do some counseling, and we start over. So he was kind of like real smug with it. Like, well, if that's what you want, like, yeah, we can do that. So I was like, well, what about her? Are you going to stop seeing her? So he paused for like 20 seconds and kind of tilted his head to the side. He was like, I ain't gonna tell you I'm gonna stop seeing her. And I was like, then you want a divorce? He was like, oh, I don't want a divorce. He was like, I ain't gonna let nobody fuck up my money. And I was blown away. Y'all, when he hit me with the, I don't want a divorce, but I'm gonna keep seeing her because I ain't gonna let nobody fuck up my money. Let me tell you something. That was definitely the wrong answer and told me everything I needed to know about him, about the marriage, and what I needed to do next. So for the next couple of days, I'm still in a state of confusion. And I remember going to, once I found the girl's name, I went to Instagram, good old Instagram. You go look there, you find anything. So I look up her name, I see her, and I'm really like feeling down. I'm like, oh my God, like she's beautiful. He wants him someone younger. Like I ain't all that, So I'm just tearing my ass up. So, my girls called later that day. My best friend called that morning and was checking in on me, and I was trying to hide it from her, but I couldn't. So I'm like in a ball of tears, tell her what's happened. She's in a state of shock. And usually she always got something to say, but she was left speechless. So she calls my other girlfriend. She calls. We all in a state of shock. Everybody's tore to pieces. So that day, after, I tell them what happened and everything, everybody, we just call it, we all were shocked. So the next day I go and meet with them because I see this girl on Instagram and I'm telling them about it. So they asked me to come out to lunch, have lunch with them, my two girlfriends. So, because they needed to tell me something. So, and I bring it up. I was like, well, I see her pictures on Instagram. And I was like, she's pretty. And they were like, girl, she ain't all that damn pretty. Like, that's filters and plastic surgery and a whole bunch of other shit. Like, girl, it ain't even all that. And they were like, and kind of, like, we ain't trying to offend you. Y'all actually kind of favor each other. Like, she may be the younger version of you. So I'm thinking, like, I don't look like her. Like, that girl's, pretty. Like, I don't look like that. So in the interim, I was like, well, at least I said they don't have any pictures of themselves up on her Instagram. So my girlfriends was like, that's why we needed to meet with you. Because they were like, there is a picture out there. So by this time, y'all, I'm devastated. So our food tries to come. We have papados. Food comes. I'm so distraught from tears and looking a hot mess. Couldn't really even eat. And we went into how bad off I was. You bad off when you can't do this. We needed to pray over our food. I couldn't even put my hands together to pray. I have never had that to happen. I couldn't even pray. I literally put my head down on the table while they were saying a prayer and cried. And basically they made me try to eat because I really could not eat anything. So it was just a complete mess. So when I get home, my husband, he was actually gone. I think he was gone, but he claimed he had a trip or something. And then he tells me when he did come home, like, well, I need to talk to you because I think we need a little break. So he was like, you need a break so you can think about some things. And I was like, huh? Like, I need to think about some things. He was like, yeah, you need a break so you can think about some things. So yeah, to add insult to injury, he tells me he needs to go away for 3 to 6 months for me to think about some things and to think some things over. And I was like, I need to think some things over. I was like, I don't need to think about anything. He was like, yeah, I need to go away so you can think about some things. So I'm like, okay. And this is a straw that broke the camel's back when he said this. And I knew that this man actually had no love for me and that he had been planning and plotting for a long time. He was like, yeah, and if you find somebody in that 3 to 6 month time frame, I'll understand. Now, who tell their spouse that? If they really love you, they don't want you all sleeping with nobody else. Not if everybody normal, ain't nobody sick or doing anything like that. So I knew then, I was like, I don't have but one other option. Divorce is the only option for me. And I tell you, I prayed about it, asked God about it. And when I tell you, he was sending me signs. If you listen, he will send you signs. And he sent me sign after sign after sign, y'all. So I did. I filed for divorce. And each day I've gotten stronger. And I think my husband thought that, I don't know what he thought about me or what kind of person I was, but because he knew how I felt about infidelity. And I always used to tell him, hey, if something ever happens, tell me on the front end, because I'm gonna hurt one way or the other, on the front end, on the back end. Just let me know, but don't play me for no fool. So he thought he got boo-boo the fool over here. So I was like, okay. And for Miss Girl that you saw in the video, yeah, she knew about me. He would have her at restaurants, hotels, games, had other women serving me my drinks. They'd feet under my table speaking to me, and he's sleeping with all these women. That is humiliating, y'all. So, you know what? I was like, if you give me shit to taste, I'm gonna let you taste it back. So to the airport video. Yeah, I was shocked. I was dismayed because that was my first time seeing them. I knew eventually that I would see them out somewhere. It's Atlanta, and hey, it's a small town. So it's a big town, but it's a small town too. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try my best to be classy and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes that just don't work because when you go in a gutter, when people go gutter with you, and I have to apologize to Michelle Obama, girl, when you said that when they go low, we go high. That ain't my motto because when they go low, I go lower. I go gutter. I'm going gutter. I'm going to swim down with the rats with your ass. So I was like, okay, yeah. So she knew, and she was on Instagram sending all her little subliminal messages and all of that. Like, yeah, okay, I got you, girl. But y'all, when all this is over, I got a little story to tell about her and the rest of his story too. Our story. It's actually our story because it's my story to tell. So I'll share more with you all, but let me tell you something that's a cautionary tale. If you all want to move on, just say you want to move on, y'all. Because if you fuck around, you definitely going to find out. And just like him, my husband got the 1 and the 2. Be good. Y'all hear from me later. Bye. Hey, y'all. After I posted that video of my husband and his mistress in the Atlanta airport, and I decided to share my story with you all, when I say that you all have shown an outpouring of love, support, kind words, prayers, just everything. And I just want to say how grateful I am because that was very hard for me. And it's still hard for me. This is a journey that I wouldn't wish on anyone. This kind of betrayal and the lies and the deception, no one deserves that, and just reading some of you all's stories, it makes me sad to know that so many people are still going through this same thing, and it's not even about, everybody's going through it. Black, white, it has no color line, and men are going through it too with women who are doing the same thing. But, I'm hoping that this will help someone know that they can share their story and not live in shame, thinking they can't say anything and to protect the other person. Those days are gone, y'all. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting me and loving on me during this time. So this is a love that I didn't even know I needed, but I needed it, guys. So, and for the Ride Out crew, y'all crack me up, getting ready to get y'all Air Force Ones or y'all stomping boots. But y'all, I'm too old for that. And I'll tell y'all this, I'm just being completely transparent. When I ran up on them in the airport, I never knew what I would do if I ever saw them together. And I didn't do anything because I'm older now and I can't fight. I really cannot fight. And I didn't want her to whip my ass. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So y'all, we're not going to fight. We're going to fight with our tongues and fight with the legal system. And since I'm still going through this process, according to my, trusted counsel, Rachel St. Fleur and Melanie Fenwick Thompson, I got to start thinking smarter, guys. So I couldn't, go off and do that. So I want to advise you guys too. Like sometimes we have to restrain. We do have to use self-restraint, guys. So I do appreciate you all, and to my super sleuth, when I tell you, y'all are better than the FBI, the CIA, Scooby-Doo, Perry Mason. Y'all are on it. But yeah, we can lean back on some of that now. We'll get it handled, guys. But thank you for your support. And for you all who said I stayed, I did not. I know my worth. And as soon as I got more information after I initially found out on October 29th of 2022, there was so much more that came out between that time and when I filed. But I can't share that with you all right now because it is actually, this story gets crazier and crazier. But can't share that with you all right now, but I will at some point, and I just hope that it helps someone else know that you're not going crazy. You're not alone with the gaslighting and people making you feel like, you're a less than. You're not. So, and for me, for those who want to stay, that is your prerogative. I'll support you, but I'm not one of those you, me, and she kind of girls. There's not going to be no Eve and the Rough Riders on that one. No, it's either you or me. I value the institution of marriage. I made a commitment to God. I made a commitment to him, and he just didn't stand up on his end. So, it is what it is, guys. But I thank you all so much, and you'll be hearing from me soon. Hope y'all have a good one. Peace.
All right, guys. That was deep. So a couple of points I want to make first. I think that, when she was going through her high blood pressure, You even could see in her, what she was wearing, how she was dressed, versus the final last video when she's, now, in the probably the acceptance stage. And, because what happens when a loved one cheats on us, and I will leave the link or a card in this video about, why cheaters cheat and some different things that I've talked about in the past about cheating. What happens is it's really devastating to the person who's being cheated on, because when someone cheats, it's not only betrayal, but then that person that's been cheated on has to make a decision whether or not to try to make the marriage work or the relationship work, or to separate. And when it comes to separation, then you're dealing with a loss. And whether you've been cheated on and you decide to stay, or you've been cheated on and you decide to leave, that loss, that feeling of loss of your marriage, loss of the trust, is a betrayal. And that betrayal and that loss hurts. And that's what makes people feel so like they're going through the stages of grief. And I think during this process, you do need to go through those stages so you can sort of see the transition in each of her videos, where she seems like she's a little better over time. She still doesn't seem like 100%, but definitely a lot better than when she started out. And that's just the process. I am happy to hear that she decided to know her worth and do what was best for her, which is, she decided to move on and seek divorce, a dissolution of her marriage. But that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes there are little children involved. Sometimes, there is money tied up, and that's why when I talked a little bit about the whole trad wife movement, or this whole movement that I'm going to talk about in a video next week about, high value women looking for high value men to sort of take care of them and provide them with a luxury type of life. And we have to be careful with those types of relationships, because when you're in a relationship with someone who is supporting you completely and utterly, taking care of you, and the bills, like she said, I don't look at those bills. She didn't say whether or not she works or not. I don't know anything about Gail's background, but assuming that, money is connected or tied together, where you're sharing credit card statements and bills, it's not so easy to just walk away from a marriage, even when cheating happens. And sometimes when cheating happens, like Gail did, she started to look at herself, what was my role in it? Was I not, being there enough? Do we just need a change of scenery? Maybe I'm not pretty enough, young enough. You start to blame yourself when you're the person who's been cheated on, because you don't know where else to look except at your own self. But you have to recognize that it takes two in that relationship. So even though she was looking at herself, she wasn't actually also looking at what his role and responsibility in that situation was. And it takes two. And whether or not there was something that she wasn't doing or living up to her end of the bargain in the relationship or not, that warrants a conversation. That doesn't mean, that her husband should have gone out there and started fooling around with somebody else for 2 years and having this full-blown relationship with somebody else because he wanted to manage his money and not be taken to the bank through divorce because of money matters. That is, a lack of respect. And so my question would be to him, when did the respect and the love go out the window for this person? And it's very possible that he has never been a very respectful person of her or even of himself, because cheating is never about the other person. It's about the integrity and the type of person that you are. And so I know, ladies, gentlemen, if you've been cheated on, it hurts and it feels like it is about you. It isn't about you. It's about that person and their lack of integrity and their lack of self-respect and self-worth and all the above. Because for somebody to go out and decide that they're going to start a full-on relationship with somebody else when they're already married or invested in a relationship with somebody else, that's more about them than you. And also, if you decide, if you're in that situation, to stay in the marriage, I don't want you to feel like, you don't know your worth, because there are a lot of factors in play. And a lot of people decide to try and make their marriage or relationship work. Cheating isn't a deal breaker for more people than you think. And I'd be happy to share some statistics about that and reasons why people decide to stay in a marriage or relationship when someone has cheated on them. Um, Again, I have been cheated on. I know how that feels. I am in a happy marriage. I don't look at my husband, my husband that I'm married to today, and think, oh, he might cheat on me because someone cheated on me in the past. I did the work, the inner work, and I think that's important before you move on. And that's what I would recommend for Gail. Before you even think about pursuing a new relationship, that you do the work on yourself, knowing your value, knowing your worth, understanding what your role was, maybe understanding what some of the signs were or the red flags that you might have ignored. And then going into whatever new relationship you decide to go into, with a clear mind, a clear heart, and an open heart, because not every man cheats, not every woman cheats. That's just some people. And there are some really good, decent people out there, in spite of the comments on this TikTok video that made it seem like men were crap and that you couldn't trust people and all this stuff. I completely, utterly disagree. Yes, there are some people that lack the integrity and lack what it takes to be committed to a relationship and be honest, and all those amazing values and qualities that one must possess in order to live in a healthy, meaningful relationship. But not everybody, 8 point something billion people on the planet, I would say that 80% of those people are good people that wouldn't do something like that. That's just my opinion. I haven't worked with millions of people, but I've worked with thousands of men and women, and they just would not do that. So that's all that I have to share. And that's my reaction and my thoughts to this video. I thank you, Gail, for sharing your thoughts and having the courage to share with this online community. And my hope is that you heal and that you find peace, prosperity, and happiness going forward. And to all of you watching, I thank you, Finding Happily Family, for watching. Do go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and then tick on the notification bell so that you're aware of when I drop a new video. But for now, have a great day, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.